Welcome to the Six Figure Flipper Podcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with real estate investors from around the globe to empower you on your wealth building journey ahead. Here's your host, Matty A.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Six Figure Flipper. Another great interview coming up for you with all kinds of amazing investing information and content that can completely transform your life, your bank account, your business in one show. Today's guest is Mr. Larry Goins. The guy has been around for 3 decades, has massive value and wisdom to share, and he spares none of it in today's conversation that him and I have. We talk about HUD houses, we talk about seller financing, we talk about, more importantly, this idea of virtual wholesaling and how you can do this by investing across state lines, how you can generate these leads with a team, a small team, bring in big profits, increase the ROI on your time so you're making more money, less time, and you can actually do it virtually. This is a topic and a conversation that without technology that has come into play these last few years was just non-existent. But he is crushing it with this model, doing deals each and every month, and he drops some great information on how you guys can do this too. And he actually has a freebie, which is freehudbook.com, how he uses HUD Homes and this system he's built around HUD Homes to completely fund his business and keep opportunities rolling in each and every month. So if you want that, check out freehudbook.com. Also be sure to download our free resource, the Run Your Rehab Project Like a Pro guide with all kinds of downloads, contracts, checklists, and everything in between from start to finish on how you can run a very successful rehab project. Whether you're flipping and you want to know how to do this yourself, whether you're wholesaling and you need to understand this process to be able to analyze the rehabs properly so you look like the expert when you're going to market these houses, or maybe you just want to remodel your own house. Right? Knowing this system, this process, not only will save you a lot of money, it will make you a ton of money and it will protect you from losing any money. So feel free to check that out, mattaitchison.com, head over to the products tab and check getting that as well as many other free resources, or just text the word like a pro, no spaces, like a pro, to 44222. It'll ask for your email, pop that right back into your inbox. Now, many of you who listen to this show are either very new in your real estate investing journey, or maybe you're at a ceiling and you're trying to have that next breakthrough. And we all know that a coach, a mentor is one of the best ways to accelerate your results, to have that hands-on accountability, to have that second set of eyes, ears, digging into your business, helping you see the blind spots that you may not know are there, and kicking your butt, making sure that you're taking action and moving the needle forward each and every week. And we have coaching available that many of our students, many of the listeners of this show have leveraged and gotten massive results. So if you want to take advantage of that, if you want to know more about that, email support@sixfigureflipper.com or head over to mattaitchison.com and check out the coaching tab. We'll also put that link in the show notes. So with that being said, my man Larry, he dropped some good gems, some great nuggets. I had a full page of notes here right in front of me that I'm going to be trying and implementing some of these things. So be sure to have your pen and paper handy. Let's get ready. Dig into Mr. Larry Goins. Welcome to the show, Mr. Larry Goins. How you doing, man?
What's up? How you been? Good to see you.
So enlighten our guests a little bit on where you're at right now. Where's your market? Who are you? They got a little taste of your highlight reel, but give us a little bit of backdrop, some context to how you got into real estate and, what's led you to the space that you're currently playing in right now.
Awesome. Well, if there's anybody out there that's not heard of me, I'm kind of surprised. No, I'm just kidding. Now, you know what, man? It's funny. I've been doing real estate for over 30 years. I did my very first deal in 1986. It was an FHA, non-qualifying assumable loan. You don't even know what those are, okay?
I wasn't even born then.
I know, right? So, yeah, man, my first deal, I assumed an FHA loan. All I had to do was sign my name away, right? And I could assume that loan. And I kept that property for a few years, and then I sold it and did a wrap and did some financing. But I am in Lake Wiley, South Carolina, as you can probably tell. And I bought houses in 12 different states. I coach and mentor people. I've written multiple books, bookstores everywhere. And I do real estate. I love real estate. I love it. There's only two things about real estate that I hate, okay? Well, actually three things. That's rehabs, tenants, and short sales. Those are three things I don't do. Everything else about real estate, I love it. Most of what I do these days is virtual wholesaling. I wrote a book called Getting Started in Real Estate Day Trading, and then that's what we do. We do a lot of HUD houses as well. I wrote a book about that, and we also, in our retirement accounts, because I'm very big on tax-free and tax-deferred income, in those accounts, I'm doing lease options and seller finance type deals. So that's pretty much what we are. We're based in the Carolinas, Lake Wiley, South Carolina, which is just across the state line from Charlotte, North Carolina.
I love it. And we got a lot to cover here because whether it's HUD houses, virtual wholesaling, creative options and financing, tax deferred, I mean, these are all topics that I think are not your common conversation in real estate. And yet when you know, in a lot of the mastermind groups I'm a part of, a lot of the individuals that I interview that are really high level seasoned investors, that's kind of
Right.
the holy grail, right? The high tier of investing that you want to get to and at least progress towards. And so whether you are brand new to real estate, whether you're interested, in maybe getting started in real estate, that's something to keep in the back of your mind and aim for. But for those that maybe go, hey, I actually don't want to do all that other stuff. I want to go to where Larry's going right now. Where would be the best place for them to start? Is it virtual wholesaling? Is it some of these creative options? Is it a mixture of all of them?
Well, you know what, man? That's a really, really good question, but that's almost like me asking you, how much does a car cost, right? Is it a 1965 Volkswagen or is it a Bugatti, right? So really where a person needs to start is start from right where you are right now. However, based on your own situation, because there's certain things that people can do, should do, shouldn't do based on their own situation. Like, for example, most people getting into real estate, and you know this, most people getting into real estate, they already have a job that they're trying to get out of, right? Mm-hmm. They have a job and they're trying to get out of that job. So they're working 40, maybe 50 hours a week in their regular job, and they're trying to do real estate nights and weekends. Well, the problem is they're trying to do real estate nights and weekends, right? They're trying to get out of their day job, and the way most people teach you is to create a second job. You didn't want the first one, now you have two, right? So you got to look, for one, how much time can you invest, right? Number two, how much money do you have to start with? Because if you have no money, then we got to start, well, do I have money for marketing, right? Because there's so many different marketing techniques and strategies: direct mail, cold calling, Facebook marketing, bandit signs, everything, right? And then, okay, how much time do I have? How much money do I have? And the third thing is, do I need cash now to replace that job, or am I looking for cash flow? Because there's some people, not the majority, but there's some people that have some money to invest, but they don't want to work a 40-hour week, right? They don't want to create real estate as a business, because there's real estate as a business and there's real estate as an investment, right? So do you need cash now, or do you want cash flow? Are you trying to replace a job, or are you just trying to invest some money passively? So there's a lot of different things in different ways. As long as you can put in time, if you have time and a little bit of money, probably the quickest way to get started is wholesaling.
Mm-hmm. So it really, like you said, it depends on time, energy, effort, and resources you have available to jumping in, getting started, and ultimately what your goals are, right? Having very clear, purposeful goals will probably depend on what starting block you begin in, right?
Exactly. That's the key right there. One thing I wish someone would have set me down and talked to me about years and years ago when I got started was, what is my personal vision, right? Mm-hmm. What do I want to spend my time doing? Nobody did that years ago. And for years, I created a business where I was at the center. I was at the nucleus, right? And everything revolved around me. And I had to show up every day. But as I got older and wiser, right, I've realized that I can have other people doing things and I can step away and hang out at my house, right? And not have to show up every single day. And I wish someone would have taught me that years ago when I first got started.
That's such a great piece of advice, because I think a lot of people see real estate investing, real estate as a vehicle for freedom, and yet they end up owning a job for the next 30 years, banging their head against a wall, being a landlord because they don't have the right systems or the right team, or right, a lot of the ecosystem built out the way it's meant to be in order to really have it be something that's passive. That's obviously something that you've been extremely intentional about. And if you're listening right now, do this from the start, right? Do it from the start. And there's obviously a formula to doing that. So share some of the things that you would recommend for someone to do based on this advice. You said, hey, I wish I would have known this. What are some of the tactical strategies and X's and O's behind that foundation that they can build starting right out of the gate?
Well, the first thing I will tell you is I am a firm believer you need to know how to do everything yourself before you start bringing in other people. So many people get started in real estate and they think, oh, I'm just going to hire a VA, or I'm going to hire an acquisition manager, or I'm going to hire a disposition manager, or I'm going to hire a closing person. If you don't know how to do it yourself, somebody is going to rip you off, right? They're going to take advantage of you and they're going to rip you off. So you have to know how to do everything yourself. Then you can start bringing in other people. In other words, let's say you're doing direct mail. You're making the phone ring. You need to know how to negotiate. You need to know how to answer that phone. You need to know how to respond when they say, well, I'm not giving you that information on how much I owe my house, right? You need to know how to do all that yourself. Then once you've got a little system down and you're doing it, then bring in an acquisition manager, right? Listen to them, coach them, mentor them, and then pass it off to them. Then bring in a disposition manager or a salesperson. We call them an asset manager at our business. So an asset manager. Then you can bring in a closing person, and they're the ones that puts all the closings together, deals with the buyer, the seller, and the title company or attorney, right? So you just start one step at a time, and you got to know how to do everything yourself to be able to eventually take it to that next level and get yourself out of the day-to-day.
Yep. You said such a critical point there too, which 100% believe in this strategy in my business as well. It's the I do, we do, they do mentality. I need to know what the highest standard of operation and expectation is for this particular role. Therefore, when I decide to incorporate somebody in, I know what to hold them accountable to, and I know how to coach them and train them and teach them up to that standard as well in the business, so they can go out and not only excel in it, but take it to that next level, and they have a great foundation, launching pad to jump off of. And there's two ways people are going to scale their business and make it passive, right? It's systems and people. And you got to be in the trenches building those systems somehow in the very beginning, which ultimately makes you a much more educated and savvy investor, which allows you to lead a whole lot better. So you're saying jump in there, get the systems, don't completely leverage and trust right out of the gate. This is part of the process, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. In fact, when you went through, the we, they, and you, that reminded me of, when you bring somebody on, the first step is they watch you, right? They watch you do it, right? The second step, right, after they watch you do it, right, then you watch them do it, right? And then they're out on their own. Right? You got to take it one step at a time. You got to take it one step at a time, and you got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're doing, and so nobody can rip you off. It's like I tell people call or email me and they'll say, hey, so-and-so's selling me this house. My first response is, remember, I buy houses. I don't get sold houses, right? You got to know the difference between somebody selling you a house and you determining what you can pay for a house.
Man, that's so critical because you make your money when you buy, you realize it either when you sell or when that cash flow is coming in every single month, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the key right there. And I will tell you this, anytime you're dealing with people, you're going to have heartaches. You're going to have people who let you down, right? And that's why it's so important that you put SOPs, standard operating procedures in place, and you have KPIs or metrics. Like, for example, if we're generating a lead on Facebook, I know from experience, if you don't reach that person within 5 minutes of them opting in, your chances of ever doing anything with them is cut by 50%. And if you don't get them on the phone in the next 24 hours, it's cut by 90%. So online marketing is great, but man, you got to be on top of it. So we got to make sure that we track our lead manager, which is another position. We got to make sure we track our lead manager. So when the leads come in, is he either taking them live or is he able to follow back up within 5 minutes? That's so important.
The world we live in, man, velocity is so key, especially when you're talking about, hey, when there's margin, there's heavy motivation. And if they're heavily motivated, they're going to look at any particular option or person that can help them solve the problem or help them find the solution that they're looking for. And you better be moving quickly. So I couldn't agree more with that. What would you say is one of your superpowers or maybe one of the best skill sets that somebody can adopt to achieve real estate investing goals at a really high level?
Well, I think if you're going to build a team, you've got to be a good motivator. You've got to be a good, I don't know if mentor or coach is the right word, but you've got to be a good communicator and be able to rally the troops and get them excited about the vision. Because we run our business based on EOS. Have you read that book, Traction?
Traction is one of the best. That's the same system we use in ours.
That's
uses
exactly
Traction software, actually.
Yeah, that's what we do. We run our business based off of the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And with every business has a visionary. I'm the visionary, you're the visionary, right?
Yeah.
And then you have what's called an integrator. Every successful, great business has a visionary and an integrator. The visionary is, here's where we're going, right? The integrator is, here's what we got to do today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year to get there, right? And the integrator is just as important as the visionary. That's very, very important to realize that. Every big company, I mean, think about it. Disney, who was the visionary? It was Walt, right? Yeah. Who was the integrator? It was Roy, his brother, right? Just like Apple. Apple's a good example. Steve Jobs was the visionary, right? Steve Jobs was the visionary. Wozniak was the integrator, right? Every big business has a visionary and an integrator, and they're both just as important.
Yep, critical. And that is, if anybody is not familiar with Gino Wickman, Traction, the Level 10 agenda, I mean, it's an amazing book if you want to not only cast the vision, but create a true tactical system for going out and executing on that. So feel free to check that out. I'll include that link in the show notes. What's been one of your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome as an investor? Because I see so many people, they think that individuals like yourself, right? It's been that just constant progression of moving upwards, but there's probably been some dips along the way where you've obviously picked yourself up, course corrected. You talked earlier about wisdom. Wisdom often comes from the darkest times, not always the wins. What have been some of your biggest challenges, and how have those really helped you level up to that next tier of investing?
Man, that is a great, great question. And I'll tell you, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've seen ups and downs. I've seen interest rates at 18%, right? Oof. I've seen the markets, go up and down. I've seen a huge seller's market. I've seen a huge buyer's market, right? And I think the biggest thing that I could learn from that is to always have a fire alarm. And here's what I mean by that. When you see the market start getting hot, right? Like, for example, there was a time 3 or 4 years ago that I got all my deals from the MLS and HUD. Mm-hmm. all my deals, right? And I was doing 10 to 15 deals a month. And slowly there's fewer and fewer MLS deals. There's fewer and fewer HUD deals. So now I've got about 12 or 13 deals on my board right now in the pipeline. And of those, I think 6 or 7 of them are HUD and maybe 1 or 2 are MLS, but the rest are either direct mail, Facebook ads, bandit signs, some of that stuff. So I think what I'm getting at is always have a fire alarm, know and understand the markets and where they're going, and have that fire alarm so you're not left all of a sudden deals dry up and you got nowhere to go, right? You've got to be planning for the future. You got to be focusing, a quarter or 2 ahead, right?
Great point. And I think you brought up a good point here, which is you have multiple marketing channels that you're getting deals from. So you can't just throw all your eggs into one basket. And if one of those baskets ends up, the bucket tips or dries up, right? You have a couple legs to your chair that gives you some balance. So what are you said a few of them, but what are some of your main marketing channels, and which ones are your favorite? What are you seeing right now as kind of being that best one, being we're in a very competitive market right now in the current landscape?
Absolutely, we are. Well, first of all, I want to say I've always said this for years. I'd rather have 10 ways to find one property than only one way to have to find 10, right? And there's really, there's probably, who knows, 100 different ways to find deals, right? A ton of different ways. So the first thing I tell somebody is to look at what they like to do. For example, there's a lot of people out there that teach nothing but door knocking, right? Well, if you hate door knocking, if you hate going door to door, you're never going to make it in real estate, because by the time you get your first deal, you'll be burnt out.
Yep.
Right? So you need to find some methods that you like and you want to do and you enjoy, and that also work either in your market or where you're going to buy, because the two don't have to be the same. I've bought and sold houses in 12 different states, right from my office in Lake Wiley, South Carolina, right? And yes, I have a team. It took me a while to build up a team, but anybody can do that. So to get back to your original question, what are some of the different ways I like? Direct mail is still strong, right? Direct mail is still strong. We use a list that we purchase from a person, and we pay a lot of money for this list. But the list has been filtered and monitored and a lot of data research to get those few people that, based on demographics, based on psychographics, based on a lot of things, where they are more likely than not to want to sell their property, right? So, but
before you move on real quick, I love direct mail, and it's been one of my go-to year after year strategies. Direct mail is not dead for those that are listening. I always love to know, what are some of the demographics that you look for? Do you like the divorce, the probate, the tax, the code violations? What are some of your favorites to go to? The landlords?
Well, I basically do a few different lists, okay? The first one is the list that I purchase from a company, and I pay about $15,000 a year just for the list, right?
Yep.
And so I use that list, but in addition to that, I like probate. Now, probate is somebody that they're in a life-changing situation where more than likely they're going to sell, right? I mean, listen, we all think that we're going to grow up and build this huge empire of real estate, and then our kids are going to take it over. But the sad reality is, when we're gone, they're going to sell everything and cash out, right?
Most likely, unless you train them on how to leverage the assets the way they should be leveraged, right?
Not only train them, but get them interested as well.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely is a passion.
Right. So I like probate because that's a life-changing situation that somebody's going through. I like tired landlords, right?
That's a revolving door always.
Especially the landlords that are absentee owners that are in an individual name, not like an LLC or something.
Right. That's your small mom and pop investor who said, real estate sounds exciting. And then they realize toilets, taxes, tenants, and turnovers are not a whole lot of fun.
Exactly. So I like probate. I like landlords.
Yep.
I like code violations. There's an issue there that's got to be fixed,
Yep.
right? So I like the code violations, and I like the delinquent taxes. And outside of that, I like the list that we buy. You know, it's very similar to something like you would get on a list source, where it's absentee owner, they've owned it at least 7 or 10 years, they have X amount of equity. But there's also some other variables that tend to indicate their motivation for needing or wanting to sell soon. And then we also do, I mean, that's just direct mail. That's
right.
all. But you can also take that same list and you can cold call that list, right? You can upload it to a dialer like Mojo, MOJOSELLS.com, Mojo Sales.
Yeah.
And it'll dial 3 or 4 numbers or not 3 or 4 numbers, 3 or 4 lines it'll have dialing at a time. So you can literally call hundreds of people in a day, right? And you want to put somebody on that that's good on the phone, that's pleasant, that knows what they're doing. You don't want to have a VA in the Philippines or Bangladesh or somewhere like that, you know, talking to people on the phone. You want to have somebody local. Actually, if you're starting out, you want to do it yourself.
Yep.
Right? Because what I have found is when you're talking with sellers, whether the phone's ringing and you're answering or you're calling out, the absolute best response you're going to get is you, right?
Yep.
The second best response you're going to get is an acquisition manager that knows what they're doing.
Someone on your team.
The third best is going to be a lead manager in-house, right? And then the last is going to be a virtual lead manager, you know, somebody like in the Philippines or something, right? So, but you want to take the calls live and you want to make those calls. So you can even upload your list, your direct mail list, to Mojo Sales.
And you skip trace those, right? People are probably wondering, how does he take a mailing address and a name and get it into Mojo?
There's a lot of services out there, and they're called appending services, where you can actually give them your list, your spreadsheet, right, with the address.
Yeah.
And they'll go out and they'll find the people and find their email address. They'll find their phone numbers. Now, you're not going to hit 100%. It's going to be about 50 to 60%, right?
Yep. But at least they'll scrape all the data that's out there in the world of the internet, and they'll at least get you as much information as possible to figure out how you can still leverage that list you're paying for, right? I love the fact that, guys, he's paying $15,000 for a list, and it's not an expense, obviously. There's some, you know, method to the madness, some science behind why he's doing that, and therefore you're repurposing that many times to try and get in front of these people.
Not only that, but it gets even better. You can take that same list and upload it to Facebook and create what's called a custom audience.
Yep.
And then your ad will only be shown to those people. I mean, imagine you had a postcard that was branded to you, right?
Yep.
A postcard that was branded to you. Like we have LarryBuysHouses.com. We have GabbyBuysHouses.com. And imagine you had that postcard, Gabby Buys Houses, and you got a picture of Gabby on it. And you got GabbyBuysHouses.com, 855 Gabby Buys, right? And then all of a sudden they get the postcard, and then all of a sudden they're trolling Facebook and they see, oh, Gabby Buys Houses. Wow, I never saw that before. But you're just hitting them with multiple mediums, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, I think I'll give Gabby a call, right?
Brand awareness, you're building rapport and trust with them, right? And ultimately we know that it takes multiple efforts and touches to get in front of these people. To maybe the time you sent the postcard wasn't the right time, but then a week later, something might have shifted, might have changed for them. A month later, whatever it may be, you're separating yourself from all of your competition that way. Brilliant strategy.
That's so true. And you got to touch them multiple times. I've heard so many newbies. You know, I tried direct mail. I mailed out 500 pieces last month.
Mm-hmm. One time. One and done, right?
You got to mail 7 or 8 times to get any traction. You've got to have, with marketing, you got to have consistency, right? That's so true. And it might take you 30, 60, 90 days to start getting some traction.
Yep.
But you've got to be consistent with your marketing. That's so important.
So I want to shift real quick. There's some gold in here, by the way. So you're bringing the heat, Larry. I'm loving it.
Awesome.
When it comes to,
you're lead generating now. You talked about some virtual wholesaling, which I know for a lot of people, one, they may not know what that is. So I'll ask you to explain that a little bit. But also, people like the idea of how can I do real estate investing without having to build this massive brick and mortar business, right? Like, how can I digitalize real estate investing to a certain level? And how can I maybe do it if it doesn't work in my market, which is still a limiting belief, but let's say, hey, it doesn't work in my market. I want to try wholesaling in other markets. Share what virtual wholesaling is and give us kind of a quick crash course on how you guys are having such great success and traction with it.
Sure. Well, first of all, everybody knows what wholesaling is. You get a property under contract and then you assign the contract to your end buyer, right? So you're really selling the paper. You're selling the contract, not the house, okay? So I do have a brick and mortar office. I own an office building. We occupy about half of it and I lease out the other half. But you can have people 100% entirely virtual. Let's say if the Carolinas was so hot, kind of like California or whatever, that I didn't want to buy into Carolinas, I would pick a market. Let's say I picked Alabama, okay? Let's say I picked Birmingham, Alabama. Well, what I would do is I would pull a direct mail list. I would run Facebook marketing. I would find a boots on the ground person. Boots on the ground person is very, very important. It could be an inspector. It could be an appraiser. It could be a realtor. It could be just a wannabe investor, like an apprentice or something. Mm-hmm. But you got to have a boots on the ground person, because once you get a property under contract, you're going to send somebody out to take pictures, take video of the property, and then start marketing the property and be able to show the property locally, right? But all you're really doing to virtual invest is you put out your marketing, the phone rings. Even though I'm in South Carolina, the phone rings. It's somebody that has a house for sale at 125 Oak Street in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm going to pull up 125 Oak Street on my computer. I'm going to pull comps. I'm going to drive the street online. I'm going to look at rent comps. I'm going to look on Zillow. I'm going to look on Realtor.com. I'm going to look on Trulia for the crime. I'm going to look at all this stuff, and I'm going to make it an offer before I ever get off the phone, right? Before I ever get off the phone, they're going to have a number in their head, right? And whether or not I buy it on that first phone call or not, it might take 2 or 3 or 4 phone calls, but I don't even have to set appointments, go out, look at the property or anything. We make the offer over the phone. Once we come to an agreement, we send them an offer to purchase via DocuSign, or we actually use Right Signature. Okay. Same thing, right?
Yep.
So there's another one out there called Deal something. I can't remember. Dot Loop, I believe is what it is.
Yep.
But, Dot Loop, Right Signature, DocuSign, whatever you use, it doesn't matter. You send it to them, they sign it digitally. As soon as you get that, then you get your boots on the ground person to go out there, take pictures, and drive the street again, look for other vacant houses that you can call and make an offer on, and you start marketing the property really hard right away. If you don't have your buyer's list, if you have a buyer's list, that's great. If not, let's say it's a rental type property. You just look up on ListSource and find other landlords in the area that have bought properties in the last year, and you send them a postcard. It might cost you $100, right? Yeah. And you got a built-in buyer's list that already own other properties in the neighborhood. So then once you find a buyer, you contact your attorney, title company, you get them to set up it's not even a double close because it's an assignment, right?
Right.
You get your buyer to sign an assignment, and you send your contract and your assignment to your attorney, title company. They close on the deal and send you the difference. Done
Boom.
deal.
You guys just got a quick crash course on that, and you made it sound so simple, man.
Well, you know what? It's not easy, but it can be simple, right? Yep. So many people think, all I got to do is whip out this credit card for a course or something, and I can buy a property right away. No, you can't do that, right? The only place you're going to find success before work is in the dictionary. Right? You gotta work. And you don't have to work a lifetime, but you do. It's kind of like a plane taking off, right? When that pilot is on the runway, he's not easing down a little bit, right? I mean, he's got hammer down, wide open to get it up to cruising altitude, right? Then once you get up to cruising altitude, you got your acquisition manager or your boots on the ground. You got your sales guy. You got your lead manager. You got your closing coordinator. Then you can back off a little bit and let these guys handle it. And then every week, you want to look at your KPIs, or as Traction calls it, your scorecard.
Yep.
How many calls did we have? How many of those were bad leads? How many turned into appointments, right? Because if it's local, we're going to go see the house, because I'll be the first one to tell you have a higher percentage closing ratio if you actually go see the house. There's no question about that. So if it's close by, if it's in driving distance, an hour and a half or so, we will go see the house, right?
Love it.
Yeah. So you got to have your KPIs or your scorecard, as Traction calls it. So you got to be able to keep track of your marketing and your response and all that good stuff.
And that's such a critical thing that I want to kind of really reemphasize is the pros track their numbers, right? The amateurs, they don't keep score. And you said it, that scorecard, right? That is the scorecard of business. That tells you what to double down on, what to maybe tweak, maybe scrap altogether. But if you're not tracking these things, you are not in control of your business. And therefore, that's where mistakes come. That's where you prolong the pain in a lot of those areas. So great reminder there. And as we come to the tail end of this interview, Larry, this has been great, man. And I know you got a ton of great freebies, a ton of great resources. I mean, you and I could sit here and talk for hours on this kind of stuff. For those that want to check out what you have available, where to find you online, what kind of resources and tools you have. One, I know sounds like you got a free gift for some people that want to learn more about, one of the topics we've been talking about today. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not difficult to find online, LarryGoins.com. And, that's our main website. But I've got a book that I think your listeners would probably really enjoy. As I mentioned, I have about 12 or 13 deals on the board right now, and about half of them are HUD houses right now. I wrote a book called HUD Homes Half Off, How to Buy HUD Houses for Pennies on the Dollar in Today's Market. And even still, right now, we are buying a lot of HUD houses. In fact, we just closed on one. This house was listed for $262,000. We bought it from HUD for $133,000. And we wholesaled it, day traded it for $150,000.
And how many hours worth of work did you have into that whole process?
Well, me personally, 0. Okay. But I've got a HUD acquisition manager. Her name is Andrea. And she works with our HUD spreadsheet. We have a HUD spreadsheet. We paid a guy a lot of money to create. In fact, in the book, it tells you all about it. You get a copy of it from the book. But anyway, we have that spreadsheet. So every day we export the list of HUD houses and import it into our spreadsheet. And then we have all of our notes and our bid amounts and everything. And then every day we have a VA in the Philippines, Mercy, and she's been with me about 5 years now.
Wow.
And she only works like 2 or 3 hours a day. She's got a couple kids, but she comes in about 2 or 3 hours a day in the evening after 5 p.m. our time, but it's really 6 a.m. her time.
Mm-hmm.
And then she spends 2 or 3 hours just entering bids online at HUDHomestore.com, putting in our bids. And, we get some counters, we get some accepted, and most of them get rejected because we bid. See, HUD is a daily auction. We bid on every single HUD house every single day, right? We don't get a ton of them, but when we get one, it's a home run.
It's a numbers game, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's a numbers game.
And if you were to say how much time, whether it's you, your team, from the second from the second you start on the lead to locking up the lead to wholesaling the lead and closing, I mean, how many hours? It can't be that many hours, right?
No, not really, because with HUD,
10, 15?
Yeah, maybe. With HUD, you got to analyze the deal. We spend about 5 to 7 minutes analyzing the deal. Then Andrea puts that number in our HUD spreadsheet, and then she's done with that property.
Yep.
Until we buy it or somebody else buys it, right?
Yep.
She's done with it.
So you even say on the high end, let's say, guys, 10 hours, Larry and his team wholesale that for 20K. 20K, let's say you put, which is on the high side, again, 10 hours into that property, you're making $2,000 an hour. This is probably a strategy that you at least want to explore and learn whether it works for you, doesn't, but you can get that for free. We'll include that link in the show notes for you guys as well. Larry, it's been a pleasure, man. As always, I enjoy chatting with just high-minded people that are doing great things, more importantly, that are willing to share it and empower more people to unlock the freedom that you get to have through real estate investing. So big kudos to you. I want to appreciate you for that. And one last question. What's your best piece of real estate investing advice for that investor right now who's looking to unlock more freedom, more income, more control over their life through real estate investing?
Well, I think I want to answer that in a two-part. It depends on where you're starting. If you're brand new and you've never done a deal yet, I'm going to tell you something different than if you're already in the business and you're trying to scale. But if you're brand new, right? If you're brand new, I want to tell you just to take action. The key thing is to take action. Fake it till you make it. You got to get out there and take action, because so many people, I mean, I have people that even buy some of my training and they'll call up and say, well, Larry, this just don't work. I just can't do it. Well, let me ask you a question. Here's my response. Let me ask you a question. How many offers did you make? Well, I went through the CDs and I read a book and I did this. Well, let me ask you another question. How many offers did you make? Well, I've spent a lot of time online looking at houses and I went to HUD Homes store, or I did this. Well, let me ask you another question. The bottom line is, if you make no offers, you got zero chance of making any money in real estate, right? That's so true. That's so true. Now, so my advice is to take action and fake it till you make it, right? Now, if you're already doing some deals and you're ready to scale, my advice would be create your personal vision, leaving money out of it before you start scaling your business, right? Because there's something to be said for keep it small and keep it all, right? Now, you can build a big organization, right, where you have multiple employees, you got staff, whether they're virtual or in an office or whatever, but there's something to be said for doing 1 or 2 deals a month. You're making 10 or 15 or 20 grand a deal, right? And, you can make $200,000-$300,000 a year just doing that. Keep it small, keep it all.
Working
right?
20, 30 hours a week, if that, right?
If that. Yeah.
Good stuff, Larry. Well, as always, for everybody that wants to check out Larry, LarryGoins.com, we'll be sure to include all of the links that he mentioned, all the tools, resources that we talked about in the show description below. Until next time, I'll see you guys on the flip side.
Well, that does it for this interview with Larry. I love that, it's interesting seeing how many high-level investors use Traction. And if you haven't read this book, Traction by Gino Wickman, this system, there's no mistake why so many people are using it. It's proven. I mean, it's proven, and it is a very effective business system that you can leverage to really systematize things and to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable as you go through and look to hit these goals throughout the quarters, throughout the years, right? And so Traction is one great book, and the EOS system is one great system that you can potentially use in your own business. So if you haven't, check that out. Be sure to check that out. I'll put that link in the show notes also. And just hearing how he has leveraged many of the similar systems that we've leveraged, it's funny how, success leaves clues. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So you probably heard something in today's interview that you're like, man, I'm already doing that, but maybe I could try this. Or, man, I didn't even think about that. Let me try this. Take some action on this. Put this stuff in motion immediately in your business. Success is often preceded by velocity and just getting in there and getting after it. So take something from today, get it into action. We got another great guest for you coming up next week. Until then, I'll see you guys on the flip side.